Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Massive matchup going down this Saturday. Number 4 Ohio State heading on the road to play number 3 Penn State in a football game that has college football playoff implications, Big Ten implications. These are two of the best teams that we see in the sport heading into this matchup. You listen to the national media. Heck, you even listen to some Penn State fans in the comments section when we took a look at this game on Sunday afternoon. There's a lot of Penn State fans that seem to think this is going to be the same old matchup between Penn State and Ohio State, where Penn State looks really good against most teams, but when they go up against a team like Ohio State, it's not good enough. There's one key difference between this matchup that we're going to see this Saturday in 2024 versus the matchups that we've seen in the past. That's Coach Koldenicki taking over on the offensive side of the football. You've looked at, what kind of hamstrings Penn State in these kind of football games. It comes on the offensive side of the football, right? This Penn State defense has been one of the best units in the country over the last couple of years. The defense has been no reason why they've been losing these kind of football games over the last couple of years. Now, you look at the Penn State offense historically in this kind of matchup, really vanilla, really bland, just not being able to hit enough explosive plays to win this kind of caliber of a football game. You're bringing in Coach Koldenicki for this kind of football game against a team like Ohio State. Can you find those explosive plays that can change the game and kind of win you a football game? That's kind of what I want to get into. Now, from a Penn State perspective, what can they do to have success against Ohio State this Saturday? Fired up to get into it. Before we do, and as always, Penn State fans, but also Ohio State fans, we're probably going to do a very similar episode from Ohio State perspective. Let it fly in the comment section. I'm going to talk about some strengths that I see for Penn State, some weaknesses that I might see for Ohio State. If y'all agree, disagree, let it fly in the comment section. That's the best part about doing these kind of episodes. Appreciate y'all rocking with it. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into this one. I want to start with this Penn State offense, and I want to start with the offensive scheme. Now, why is offensive scheme so important when you're going up against an Ohio State defense? You look at this Ohio State defense, for my money, it's the most talented defense that you see in the country. Top to bottom, defensive line backers, going back to the defensive backs, littered with NFL talent. In previous years, Penn State has gone into these kind of football games and just kind of ran a vanilla offense that was just asking Penn State's difference makers on the outside or difference makers at running backs to make some plays to win the football game. In these kind of football games, when you're going up against a defense of this caliber, you got to scheme it up. And that's kind of what I expect Coach Koldenicki to do. And I think a fascinating conversation heading into this one is you saw Penn State get a little bit tested on the road against USC, but through a large part of the 2024 season, Penn State hasn't seen a really serious test. Does Penn State have some bullets left in the chamber, so to speak, specifically on the offensive side of the football, some creative plays and schemes that they can kind of implement on Saturday that they haven't put on film just yet to have some success? Even if they don't, you look at this Coach Koldenicki offense and say it's been significantly more explosive. The chunk plays, the 20-plus yard plays, they're happening more for this Penn State offense throughout the first 7-8 games of the 2024 season. Now, where I want to start is misdirection, pre-snap motion. You look at this Ohio State defense. This is not a defense that I think any team in the country can just line up and expect their difference makers to go win consistently. It's just too talented of a defense. I think a lot of Ohio State fans know that. Coach Koldenicki, what is he a master at going back to his time at Kansas? Pre-snap motion, different formations, misdirection. That's kind of how you want to go at this Ohio State team because, again, it's hard to run a bland offense and move the football against Ohio State because of how talented they are on defense. You got to take – this is a very aggressive Ohio State defense. You got to get them looking in the wrong direction, taking false steps. That's where it starts for Penn State. And, again, we haven't seen that from a Penn State offense in this kind of game going back over the last couple of years. We're going to see that in this game, right? Pre-snap motion, jet sweep motion. They run a lot of counter. The second storyline here is it starts with Tyler Warren. It's no secret that this Penn State passing attack, it goes through Tyler Warren. There's no doubt about that. I would guess that Ohio State has a very good plan coming into this football game to deal with and try to take away Tyler Moore. Now, it's much easier said than done, right? Coach Kolnicki gets extremely creative in terms of how they use Tyler Warren, including having him snap the football, go catch a 50-yard touchdown. That's how this offense works. That being said, I don't think this can be a game in which Penn State can just rely on Tyler Warren to win this game because Ohio State's got really good backers. They got really good safeties that can match up with Tyler Warren and kind of take him out of this game. What it comes down to in my mind is these wide receivers that I think has largely, I don't know if I'd use the word underwhelming, but they haven't been as effective and as explosive as I think a lot of Penn State fans would like to see. This is the game where they need to step up. Now, we talked about it's hard to just rely on your guys to make plays, but at the end of the day, that's kind of how you win football games. Coach Kolnicki is going to do everything he can to scheme it up and dial up some explosive plays. At the end of the day, guys like Harrison Wallace, Amari Evans, Julian Fleming playing his former Ohio State Buckeyes, they're going to need to make some plays because you look at one of the what I think is a weakness with Ohio State right now is these defensive backs have not played very good football over the last couple of weeks. I'm not getting up here and saying the Ohio State defensive backs aren't good because that's not. They got two boundary cornerbacks that are going to be picked in the NFL draft in the next couple months. They got a safety in Caleb Downs, who's one of, if not the best safety in the country. It's a good secondary. But at the end of the day, you look at Denzel Burke, had a very tough game against Oregon working against Evan Stewart. You look at Davis and Ignosin against Nebraska, took a lot of penalties. This is a Ohio State secondary room that I'll put it like this. It's a very good unit that I don't think has a ton of confidence heading into this matchup in terms of how they've played the last couple of weeks. At the end of the day, these wide receivers are going to need to step up. Yes, you want to run this passing attack through Tyler Warren. For my money, the best tight end in the country right now. It's got to be more than Tyler Warren to beat this Ohio State team. Now, I think the last conversation you want to have on offense is what the quarterback position looks like. Obviously, Drew, not really sure how healthy he's going to be for this game. Not even sure if he's going to play in this football game. Jame Franklin keeping it under wraps. I'm not saying this is an advantage for Penn State, but at the end of the day, this offense is going to look significantly different whether Drew or Bo Prabula plays. That kind of throws another wrinkle in terms of Ohio State prepping for this football game. They're going through their next 6 days prepping for two kind of different offenses with two different quarterbacks. I also have some confidence, probably more confidence than even some Penn State fans have, in terms of what Bo Prabula, can do for this Penn State offense. I think arguably his skill set better fits what Coach Kolnicki wants to do. You go back to Coach K at Kansas and how dynamic and the dynamic ways he used Jalen Daniels. That's probably the best way to phrase it. I think Bo can do a lot of that stuff that Drew, although Drew has played very good football to start 2024, Drew simply can't. Even if Drew starts, I think you'll see a pretty significant package with Bo in this football game. Can Coach Kolnicki take advantage of that? That's probably the last question mark you're looking for. And again, the basics, staying out of third and longs, especially against this Ohio State pass rush, that's going to be a premium. There's some things you need to do, but I think having Coach Kolnicki and the misdirection and all the different formations in the pre-snap motion, not necessarily what you're kind of looking for is to slow this Ohio State defense down. Don't get them thinking a little bit more than just going out and playing football. Because when they're just going out and playing football, it's a really good defense. Now, on the defensive side of the football for Penn State, it's don't oversimplify it. This Ohio State team right now has a big problem on the offensive line, right? They lost Josh Simmons out for the year against Oregon. Then Zen Mikulski comes in at left tackle. He gets banged up against Nebraska. We're not sure if he's going to play. We're not really sure what this Ohio State offensive line is going to look like, period. Even if Zen plays, I think Ohio State fans would be the first to admit that Zen didn't play very good against Nebraska. You take a look at the numbers from that Nebraska game for Ohio State. They only ran the football for 64 yards, 2.1 yards per carry, gave up 2 sacks, 7 TFLs. If you have problems against on your offensive line, dealing with this Penn State defense is going to be really difficult. If you're Penn State, you have to win up front. I wouldn't just say win up front. You got to dominate up front. And it for a couple of different reasons. One, taking away this run game, which is very, very good with two very good running backs. If you can do that, create some third and longs. Ohio State has had some success pushing the ball down the field. If you're Penn State, you can force third and longs, not even necessarily bring pressure, but if you can get some third and longs where Will Howard needs to drop back in the pocket, go through some of his progressions, that's where, if you're Penn State, you can really capitalize with this pass rush. I mean, a guy like Abdul Carter, you have some dudes on the inside of the defensive line as well. Denied Dennis Sutton as well. If you're Penn State, you got to dominate on the defensive line in both stopping the run and getting after the passer. That's probably the singular matchup that, if you're Penn State, you have the most confidence in coming into this game. I think Penn State's defensive line, the way we just saw Ohio State's offensive line play on Saturday against Nebraska, I think Penn State can dominate up front. If you can do that, give them problems throwing the football, problems running the football, that's kind of where it starts. You could talk about scheme all you want. If Penn State wins this football game, they're going to be racking up some negative plays. They're going to be consistently getting after Will Howard. Will Howard under pressure this year, 40% completion percentage, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Has not been very good under pressure historically. Has not been very good under pressure going back to his time at Kansas State. That's where it starts for this Penn State defense. It's going to be a really fun game. You're looking at two of the best teams in all of college football going head to head. Rowdy crowd environment. Fired up for this one. We'll close it out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later.